Hello and welcome to 21st Century Vitalism. This is a podcast exploring how we can best maintain a sense of energy, inspiration, and wakefulness while living with the unique and often challenging circumstances of the modern age. My name is Brett, and I'll be your host on this multidisciplinary journey, which will take us through the realms of spirituality, somatic practice, martial arts, creativity, and environmentalism, leaving nothing off the table that I think is relevant for orienting in an integrated and, well, vital fashion. Today's episode is a real treat in that we're being joined by the impeccable Ayla Nereo. For the uninitiated, Ayla is a singer, composer, producer, dancer, and creative guide who has 7 full-length albums under her belt, as well as an extensive history of playing some of the most renowned stages. Her music is a cross-pollination of Celtic melodies, live looping, electronic soundscapes, and even a touch of hip-hop. Beyond that, she's also the founder of The Living Song, which is a creative community helping people unlock their creative potential and to step into their full range of sovereignty. This work happens to be the focus of this conversation as we dive into how we can become an open channel for our creativity, how we can clear out any blockages, and ultimately step more fully into our power. We also spend some time exploring the importance of vitality on the creative path, what sovereignty means in the modern age, and how we can apply these principles to parenting. It's a very juicy conversation that I'm sure you'll enjoy, so let's get to it. Before that, though, if you want to plug into Ayla's work, I highly recommend tuning into her music first and foremost. You can find her on just about every streaming platform at this point. And if you want to sink your teeth in a little bit deeper, head on over to thelivingsong.aylanereo.com and get signed up for her community. She's also very active on social media with a lot of little bits of wisdom here and there that I have found to be pretty enriching. As always, if you want to support this show, you can head on over to patreon.com/21stcenturyvitalism and consider leaving me a tip. The show is a labor of love, so really any bit helps. I get it though, finances can be tight, so you're also welcome to subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and like us on Facebook. Really, any and all interaction is helpful. So now that that's out of the way, without further ado, please sit back, drink some tea, do some stretches, and most importantly, open your heart for Ayla Nereo. So, Ayla, we are now live. So, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for coming on the show and blessing me with some of your time. I know you're in Hawaii right now. So, for you to be able to sit in front of a computer screen is a real treat for me. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Yeah, it's
Good.
beautiful here. It's nice to have just a moment to soak this all up, and might be one of the last flying adventures I do before this next chapter of motherhood. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
feeling really sweet, and it's nice to be on this show. Thank you for inviting
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. So, is it purely pleasure? Is there some business involved with it? Or,
A little business. My partner Isaac is a DJ, and he's performing 3 different shows, one on the island here, and then two on Maui, and
amazing.
um, and then I decided to throw together a workshop. Um, uh, I don't do them live very often, but I wanted to give that to the Maui community, so I'll be doing that, and then probably singing on a few songs in his final show.
Love that. Plus, it's a tax write-off, so that's a
There
huge
you go.
win. Nice. Love the creative lifestyle. Yeah. So, just for background for you, just so you know where I'm coming from, you've been in my musical diet for probably about 10 years at this
Mm,
point. It was Hollow Bone. That was kind of when I jumped on that album area. So, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for
mm,
braving the creative life and all the uncertainties that presents. I know it's not easy, especially in this day and age, especially compounded with COVID. So really, I just wanted to start with just a little bit of gratitude for you
mm.
and your commitment to the path. Yeah, I actually saw you when you came to Grand Rapids in Michigan.
Oh.
And it was funny because there was like a little bit of like technical hangups, and I was just appreciative of how graceful you were in navigating that, and it ended up
Mhm.
still being an amazing show. So I thought that was very skillful.
Oh, that's great. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thanks for
yeah,
expressing that. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, getting into the conversation, there was, as I was saying before, there was a lot of things that I could draw from because you have so many different offerings and themes and just really wonderful things going on. But I thought one of the most, I guess, axiomatic things we could work with was your Living Song program, which is something that is a little bit newer in the arc of your career. And I think that there's just so much juice to be had there. So, yeah, just to kind of start off on that track, what exactly is the Living Song program, and what inspired you to get involved with it?
Yeah, thank you. Um, it's a so the Living Song started actually at the outset of COVID hitting, and it was a course that I'd had in my mind for a while. So we just kind of hit go on it. But then a year later, I think it was a year later, I decided to try out a different format. It started to feel like it wanted to be a membership rather than a course, something that was a bit more ongoing. And it's been a membership since then. We actually just, it keeps, it's appropriately titled because it is a living creation. And so it changes as the need of what I'm watching and seeing, and as I change, and as um, the needs of my community change, it changes because it is a community space in that, in being a membership. And so um, the purpose in this newest iteration is to really be a place for people to not only have like course like content that they can always go to, a library of voice opening practices. We're getting more and more into affirmations to really empower your sense of self and worth and creative, just creative clarity, and even manifestation, bringing in different things on manifestation and scripting. And um, it's grown also to include guests. So we're starting to have more and more guests come in and have dialogues about creative process, about opening the channel, about um, being an independent artist, about human design. Like there's just so many realms that I'm interested in and people that I'm connected to. And so part of it is having a place where I can share these epic humans that I know and people that really inspire me, not only creatively, but actually like really inspire my channel to be more clear, or my life to be more, um, yeah, just have that power flowing through.
Yeah.
And so bringing those people in and having them meet the community and having the community receive their gifts is feeling like a really exciting new piece. That's a pretty new piece. Um, we just are in a reopening right now where we actually collapsed. We had two tiers and we actually collapsed them into one, so everyone gets everything, which feels really
Oh,
nice
yeah.
and simple. And I really like that. Just, yeah, it's the intention I have with it is to really support, to recognize that we are humans walking this path, and it's so multi-layered, what it means to be creative, what it means to be a channel, this word that I use, be a vessel, be clear and available, and really get out of our own way. So it gets into a lot of ego work. It gets into
Hmm.
a lot of mind and mindset work. We encounter all the parts of us that are scared of being seen. So it's a lot of self belief, and there's so many layers to it. And so because of
Yeah.
that, it's this ongoing place for people to be supported, nourished, inspired, kind of just to like walk. I want this space to feel like it's something people can just walk with each month, and
Yeah.
go back to and be supported by, and have a community to reach into. And we do live sessions once a month, sometimes twice a month. Um, Yeah, it's rich, it's growing, and it's been really powerful, and it feeds me so much because everyone in there is brilliant, and more I'm really intending for it to be a space to serve people's leadership.
Yeah.
So, whether someone currently identifies as a leader or as a creative or any of those, like really calling in those people to come and try, and knowing that everyone who shows up is that, even if they don't believe it already, it's really that kind of self leadership, as a creative individual, choosing to be available for something bigger to come through, because I really believe that if we can all tune into that, to really let that, the bigness of our soul expression and the bigness of what really wants to move us and be created through us, when we really get out of the way and let that through, if enough of us do that, absolutely anything is possible on this planet. And I absolutely believe that. And so this is my little part of trying to help that, and make a space that helps people not only get into that space, which a course can do, you kind of like get into it, but an
Yeah.
ongoing space for people to be reminded, because it's so easy to do a one-time thing and be like super inspired,
Hmm.
and then a month later you're like back in the rhythm. Um so yeah, just like, I know for me it's really helpful to have things that are more like daily practices or
Hmm.
ongoing spaces that, like, oh yeah, oh yeah, that part of me, oh yeah, I'm remembering this, oh yeah, that practice. So that's the intention of it, and that's, yeah, the expansion that it's becoming too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the sounds of this. So when you use the term channel and have phrases kind of like letting things move through you, for some people who might not be connected to anything like that, I guess could you go into a little bit more detail of what you view? And I know you've used the word like vessel before.
Hmm.
What do these things mean to you on a deeper level?
Yeah, thank you. I think I like the word vessel because it immediately brings forth the image of a cup, right? Or a chalice. And you imagine water filling that. And so the idea of being a vessel is being a clear and open vessel, which also can mean an empty vessel.
Hmm.
And we're not empty. We're filled with personality, and that's part of the beauty of it. We create from who we are, and that's what makes it so, each thing that each person creates, so unique. We have such beautiful, wild, wonderful humanness. But to be open for that water to pour in, and then we get to give that water, it's it's a different orientation than I'm trying to do something. Like, even approaching a
Mm-hmm.
song, I can either try to write a song and be very involved and my mind's going, or I can open up almost like a meditation and clear space in my mind and listen, and then really allow something to drop in. And where that thing comes from is up for a whole lot of beautiful dialogue. Some
Yeah.
would say it's like source, creator.
Hmm.
I often feel it as like this, the great mystery, which is connected, in my spiritual sensing of things. I do have a sense of oneness, of creator, of source, and within that, there's this, um, almost like these creative forces. Sometimes I call them the muses, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's, you could say the soul, like our soul, our higher self, whatever it is that we're opening up to. It's bigger than our personality
Yeah.
and our ego, and so something else becomes possible
Yeah.
when we open up to that. So that's really what I mean. I mean, the word channel is, can have a lot of connotations, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but the reason I do like that word is because it's like a river, like a channel that way. It's like
Hmm.
a clear opening and
Yeah.
passageway. Yeah.
It's funny. You actually kind of read my mind. I was going to ask, like, well, what is it that's doing the pouring into the vessel? But you got me there. Um, So, as you're working with people who are coming to this who might have maybe like clogged vessels, is that a thing? Like, can you have a vessel that is clogged? Like, what does that mean? Like, when people come to you and they're like, I need help opening, I need help getting a sense of this
Yeah.
from this kind of perspective as a creative, really addressing like writer's block. Is this something that you've experienced? And what are your thoughts on when that happens?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The vessel can get clogged.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Um, uh, I think of it more as like, usually what I find is that it's the mind getting clogged.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's anytime we feel like we're overthinking or we're concerned about what other people think or we're judging ourselves or we're frustrated or we're um, stagnant, all of these things that kind of like stop up the the energy from flowing in. It's not a permanent. I don't think anyone's clogged like as a more permanent state. It's more you can I'll speak for myself. I can be, you know, have a lot of creativity and a lot's moving and I have like a lot of access to if I want to just make up a song or if I want to do this, it's like very accessible and also I'll have days where I feel super stuck or blocked. So it is an ongoing practice,
Yeah.
as with any good meditation.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something we keep pulling our minds to, attuning to that openness, attuning to clearing out the thoughts, attuning to there's personal work that can happen too on the emotional level of like we encounter parts. Some of the obstacles are beliefs we have about ourselves of like I'm
Yeah.
not good enough or I can't do that. Um, and so we get to also encounter that and then there's a much wider level I feel of when we open to listen, we're not just listening to, what creative insight wants to come through. We're also listening to life. This is
Yeah.
also why the membership's called the Living Song, because we're opening to something much greater, which is our intuition. It's that, however you want to feel into the greater than usness.
Yeah.
And when we really start listening to that, that's when synchronicities happen. That's when, we're doing this inner looking and we're finding parts of ourself that are judging ourselves and then all of a sudden someone shows up in our life that is a powerful healer in this subconscious realm and it's like, oh, you're supposed to help me unblock these things and
Yeah.
it's very mysterious how that happens, but that's part of the greater creative process, I feel,
Yeah.
is when we open to that bigger orchestration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting as I've kind of walked similar paths, how you might have like an idea, but like the idea will actually get in the way of the expression in life. So for something like a synchronicity to really come and affect your life in a positive way, you have to not be like looking for it too hard.
Yeah.
There has to be
Yeah.
like kind of a loose, like looking toward, but like kind of averting your gaze. Otherwise, if you're
Yeah.
like really with it, then it can again act as kind of like a clog, like this like psychic entanglement where you're just like kind of desperate. You get this like kind of like
Yeah.
neediness. And it's like learning how to simultaneously be open, but then not grasp. That in itself has been something for me that I've had to work with as I've grown up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's tuning me into also the shift between I'm looking for something or I'm trying to make something happen. Like you said, that grasping energy versus trust, which is
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
keynote of my whole life right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I can explain more later. But it's this very um, yeah, just a different approach of really what does it mean to really trust that what's meant
Yeah.
for us is coming for us and then move from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's challenging, I think, for some people to learn how to trust when life has been challenging. If you've undergone like a trauma or just a lot of heartache, to like learn how to soften. I think it does kind of tie into this need for community.
Yeah.
This like sense that like to be have someone bear witness to your process, I think is like such an important thing. And having like an unwavering presence be able to hold you in that as you actually express these things, and to have somebody not turn away. So I
Yeah.
think the community element with what you're doing, I mean, what you're doing is very subtle. It sounds like deep work, you know?
It is. I feel like that I'm still learning how to communicate it on the outward level
Yeah.
because it's like especially in the sessions, but also just the intricacy of how it's moving and it is subtle. It's kind of like it can present outward as like, oh, it's a cool creativity container,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
voice opening and it is that and it also yeah, there's so many layers to it because
Yeah.
it's multidimensional, it's very
Yeah.
fractal. Like we're opening the voice, but we're also opening to the intuition, which is also opening to trusting
Yeah.
everything that's meant for us. And we're doing that all at the same time in a
Yeah.
session, and it is deep work.
Yeah. Well, I think,
Um,
I mean, just the idea of like opening the voice, like that energy center in the throat, I've had a long journey getting to be able to do this podcast
mm,
where, I was like very nervous and self conscious, and allowing this to be like loose and relaxed and allow what your truth is to move through it. I mean, that really does tie into some very fundamental relationships to life, yourself, so it really is such a tender environment to be able to work with people and encourage them to like, no, it's like it's okay, you can trust this container to be able to communicate what you need to, and that kind of work I think is so important, especially in the social media age. I think that there's a lot of communication hangups that are happening and ways that we're relating to one another through these mediums, which I just think we don't fully understand the full gravity of. So
yes.
by connecting with somebody and allowing them to really just speak their truth, I think is going to be really needed as technology gets more wild.
Yeah. And I mean, it's in a lot of the most ancient texts is like the power of the word to create. And um, it's really this is our creative center, the throat center is where thought becomes form through the word. And a lot of ancient systems they speak of it as a magical act in the sense of there's an alchemy happening there and there's a creation happening there. In
Yeah.
the beginning was the word, and like
Yeah.
so many ancient um, mystical traditions really speak to that of um, we create. I mean, everything's made of sound. We're
Yeah.
sound and vibration and light. And so it makes sense that the word, the vibration of what comes through, ripples into reality. And I do believe, I mean, the words themselves are so important to be intentional, but and also the vibration that we come with and the intention that we come with to be clear, to be listening. When words come through me and my intention is simply to listen and be available, and they come through and they're coming through with the heart, you feel it. It's a different vibration. I can
Yeah.
feel it even happening now, like in the space. It's a different ripple. And so when more of us can, like you're saying, like trust that and attune to that, it's it's creating something beyond the words then. It's actually
Yeah.
affecting the fabric,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always get tripped out with this idea that, with the ear, like the inner ear is where our sense of balance comes from. There's
Mhm.
like those little crystals where sometimes if they get off, you get like vertigo. So like the idea of like somebody communicating and affecting these like inner structures, which are in relation to our ability to be grounded really, and our ability to be like embodied. It's like
Mm,
the power of song, to
mhm.
have like a melodic, a rhythmic, almost like a massage for all the inner ear structures. And it really can have that effect of grounding you in your body. You listen to music like yours, or there's, I mean, even like sound healing stuff, and the way that that brings us home and reminds us on a physiological level, not just like a spiritual, emotional, but like all three of them are interwoven, and it's magic. I think that's how
Yeah.
I would describe it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. So, as I was doing some research into what you're doing with this, I recognized a few posts that you made about the different stages. So they were the illuminate, alchemize,
Mhm.
and radiate. Is this still kind of a framework that you use? And what exactly do each of those mean?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, this is something that we started with this newer iteration, and so the membership, we move through the elements because I'm also in a journey with my albums, being initiated through the elements. And so there's this, and I think also it's just so grounding and helpful to work with the elements always because we're made of them. We're not separate from this earth. So these are the building blocks, really. And and so we move through the elements, and we spend 3 months in each element. And
Mm,
in those 3 months, the first month is illuminate, the second month is alchemize. The third month is radiate. And these are, they're not. It's not like at any moment you might be um, in one or the other, and you might have all three in 1 week. It's not like a hard and fast thing. It's more like an exploration, a framework, to intentionally dive in to an energy or a, yeah, they're different phases also of creativity, what they relate to. So illuminate is the phase of becoming aware, bringing consciousness to. And so bringing consciousness to our relationship to the element, bringing consciousness to what our beliefs might be, or negative self-talk, or just bringing more awareness. And in creativity, it's the process of opening and becoming aware of what wants to come through, insight coming through, listening, those phases. Alchemize is that wild transformative process. So we're in it. It's kind of like the being in it, being churned up and changed. And so, that's like actual practices. It's the engagement with the process of shifting belief patterns, or creating the song, actually being with it and encountering all the parts of self, and like letting it change us, letting
mm,
all these things, letting the elements change us. And then radiate is another word for that, would be sharing. It's like
mm.
then we give from that place, from the process of listening, from the process of allowing ourselves to be changed. Then we share ourselves, which is its own, like, there's micro layers of illuminate and alchemize within sharing, because sharing brings up so much. So we're constantly
Yeah.
dancing between all of them. Um, but yeah, in our container, that's that's generally where we are having more invitation also for people to share more of themselves. We have a whole section inside the container called Lean In, and it's an invitation for people to lean into edges and share a video of them singing, or an improv, or whatever feels a little edgy,
Yeah.
um, whatever's been alchemized or wants to be alchemized, because we can't really go through the alchemy fully until we go into radiate, until we go
Yeah.
into sharing. um, Usually we have to just do the thing. I'm sure you found with the podcast, you just got to do the thing, and it's scary. But the
Yeah.
more you do it, the more you kind of jump off that little ledge. We learn things about ourselves and our capacity that we never would have known before. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's wonderful. So, how
Mm.
do each of the elements change these kind of stages of discovery? And, like as you're doing this 3 months, then when you go to the next 3 months, I mean, is it just like a whole new range of practices, or how do you integrate the elemental awareness into it?
Yeah, there's a lot of there's specific prompts that come as we enter a new stage, a phase, or an element. Um, so it's inviting inquiry is a lot of it,
Hmm.
inviting people to journal, to work with. There's certain rituals or practices that we put up into the library, which is growing, so people can work with that. And the reason I like that also is that we just entered Earth, And it's
Hmm.
so funny how this all works because I didn't necessarily plan it all, like, I just we kind of were like, "This is a good timing." But we entered Earth right as Taurus started, and we're
Oh,
in
yeah.
Taurus season now in
Yeah.
astrology. So that's a kind of a nice timing, which is an Earth sign, and so it's very much like, for instance, right now there's an invitation, there's some rituals going up, there's an invitation to different invitations to work with Earth energies and step in the illumination phase to pay attention. What's coming up? What are you aware of? What um, different writing prompts? Um, and if someone personally is feeling like, well, there's a lot of fire in my life right now, there's a whole library from fire where they can
Yeah.
actually engage more with that element. So it's again, it's like it's all there because we're
Yeah.
constantly being moved by the elements. Um, and then we also weave the whatever element we're in goes into the sessions. So it sort of
Mm,
guides what we're talking about
mm.
and the tone. So there's monthly, we call them warrior hummingbird sessions, where it's a live session with me. But then quarterly, we have these vessel of voice practices that I've cultivated a sort of process, a methodology using the loop pedal and facilitation to invite people to use their voice as a way to really open to more layers of their creative self and self-belief and different aspects of their voice just to really like unlayer some stuff. And so in those practices we also are guided by the element. We let that be a, a sort of yeah, like a guiding note
Yeah.
in how we're leaning towards those things, because
I
the
love it.
elements really all have such power and
Yeah.
strength. And so when we start to really engage with them, it immediately can shift and empower how we're singing, how we're creating, how we're doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just for the sake of example, now that we're in the earth element, it's
Yeah.
May, and Vedic astrology, May is like the month for connecting with nature. Like
Perfect.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
charge to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Beltane in the old
y-
traditions. Yeah.
yeah. So, for you in your personal life, how are you connecting to the earth element?
Mm. Well, I am in quite an initiation process as I, am becoming a mother. And so I would say one of the biggest ways I'm connecting is that I'm getting bigger. And there's literally more gravity in my body. And
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. I love being pregnant.
Yeah.
um, and it's as a person who is, in the Ayurvedic tradition, I tend to have run more vata, more air energy, air and fire in my astrology chart is very strong. Um, I have a lot of like hummingbird energy, and I'm a generator in human design. Like there's all these things where I'm just kind of like, go, 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 let's do it. And so to be in a phase of life where like my partner Isaac and I joke that I'm not actually a Taurus, but I feel like a Taurus during this time because I feel very grounded. I feel very like like good food and health and a good
Yeah.
space to sleep is all very important right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and moving a
Yeah.
bit slower. And
Yeah.
even we took a walk along the coast yesterday and just like feeling my feet on the earth, and just there's a different attunement to the elements, to the earth, in a different way. And so I feel that with earth, it's very much an invitation to ground
Yeah.
and feel our rootedness, and prioritize the body is a really big one
Hmm.
with earth,
Yeah.
is to really check out like how can we take care of this earthy vessel better,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's holding everything. It's like, yeah,
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 that was something that really drew me to your platform. Actually, like tuning in. It's one thing to like listen to music, but to actually tune into the things that you write is your emphasis on vitality. That's kind of a word that I've seen you
mm,
use quite a
yeah,
bit. And obviously, there's an intersection with me in this show with 21st century vitalism.
Yeah.
But with that, as in relationship to creativity, how important is vitality and what does it actually mean to you?
Mm. I love the word vitality. It's one of
Yeah,
my favorite words.
it's a beautiful word.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
It has so much energy. Words have so much
Hmm.
energy and vitality. It's it it feels like it includes the word life, which is the force of life. It's so strong, and vitality feels like thriving life. It feels like true health. And a word that I use a lot actually is aliveness. So vitality and
Mm,
aliveness feel very almost like synonyms to me. Um, to me, vitality is not just physical health, which is ground one for sure.
hmm.
And I think a little caveat on that is I think we don't even know the potential of our physical health. I think that most of our human family is still operating in what we're kind of given by mainstream awareness of health, and we're not at the level of vitality that we can be. But I think more and more people are tuning into holistic systems and gut health, and um, the importance of getting sunshine, the importance of clean water, like really good water, and minerals so that our body can absorb the water, and all these nuances that then we start to connect with vitality. And when we're in that vital state again, like, the channel gets more open, the vessel gets clearer, everything starts operating differently and more clearly. We have more access to trust, when the vessel is more
Yeah.
clear. So it really is zone one, is the body. And then I feel vitality also connecting to a consciousness state of aliveness is like being awake to the potential of our
Hmm.
soul expression, of our humanity, like what vibrationally what's possible. Um,
Yeah.
Vitality feels like a frequency in a way. So it's
Yeah.
also that state where we're buzzing, where we're like, it doesn't mean we're happy all the time. We can be feeling the world. We can be feeling like all the range of emotions of being human and having compassion and all of it, challenge in our life. But with it, there's an availability, I think, to the awareness of our experience, and to the um, yeah, it's almost like a cellular frequency level,
Yeah.
of awakeness.
Yeah. Yeah. That all rings very true for everything I'm
It's a
talking
little
about in this show.
abstract.
Well, I think it needs to be. I think
Yeah.
oftentimes, vitalism was a belief system that was actually kind of like shunned after a certain amount of time,
Oh,
which is kind of
interesting.
why I was bringing it back with
Huh.
this show in a new way with the 21st century version of it. And I think that a part of that does include more metaphorical thinking, more
Mm,
abstract reaching of the mind. But I also think like a part of the premise of this show is that it's multifaceted. So it's not
mm,
just the physical, it's also the psychic, it's also
mm.
how we engage in business, how we engage in politics.
Yeah.
Every element of our manifestation and how we interact with the world is either feeding or uh, taking away from our sense of being vital. And that I've used the term aliveness for the first part of this show and describing the show. It's like
Okay.
how can we have a sense of aliveness while living in the modern messiness of the world?
Hmm.
But that multifaceted, it kind of gets a little gooey when you talk about it. And I think that's why science has kind of been like, oh, can't do that. But I also think moving beyond needing science to verify everything is an
Yeah.
important part. I like evidence based stuff, love it. But also, there's parts of us that need expression that can't wait for evidence because it's happening now. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And like, you know, if you've experienced synchronicity, you know how magical that feels. And
Hmm.
can you prove anything about it? It's kind of
Yeah.
gets in that realm. I think spirit, like this larger umbrella we could call spirituality, is like all under that, where It's almost like when you know, if you have sat and meditated with a sunrise and had a profound experience of oneness, can you prove God exists?
Yeah.
Or do you just know that there's something greater, and maybe you don't even need to name it. Um, yeah, I don't think proof is possible or necessary.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I think it's a
yeah,
felt sense too. Like it's not
yeah,
necessary to prove it because it's already animating your life and inspiring you to take the next action. It's like that moment is gone, but the energy it's given you to create the next chapter of your life is very present, and then it's always changing. So there's
yeah,
nothing to really like hang your hat on for it because it's just always churning forward. When you get into that slipstream, then everything around you just changes. You feel different. um, and I think a lot about this phrase from Timothy Leary.
mm,
He says, in order to do good, you need to feel good. And I think prioritizing that to some degree, not in a hedonic way or hedonistic way, um, but just like really taking that in as like a virtue. Like we should be able to prioritize spaces and practices that allow us to feel good, you know?
I my internet paused you for a second
Oh,
right when
yeah.
you were telling about Timothy Leary, so I really want to
Yeah.
hear though.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you hear the quote with it?
No, it stopped
Okay.
right before.
Oh, that's wow, the suspense. Yeah, so Timothy Leary, he has this quote, and it says, "In order to do good, you have to feel good."
Mm,
And I think having that as a virtue, not in a hedonistic way, but in a way of like, yeah, I deserve to have a good existence, and whatever it will take for me to do that in like a holistic, just way, I think is up for grabs. I think that
yeah,
that's an important part of living a vital life is being able to own your experience, not need verification, but to trust that flow of energy moving forward. I think it's all there.
yeah. I love that too because I feel like it's getting at something like another layer of that. What I'm hearing is feeling good is a vibrational state. And
Hmm.
whenever we put ourselves in a vibrational state that is positive, that is kind of like I'll just use that example, feeling good. When we feel good, we have access to different information. We are more open. Synchronicity tends there's these attractive forces in the universe. There's this magnetism and resonance fields, and when we feel good, we resonate with good. We resonate
Yeah.
with things, and then we start. That's where you get into the law of attraction and manifestation, all these
Yeah.
principles. We're literally just resonating bodies, and bodies want to
Hmm.
resonate in harmony. And so I hear that in that layer too, of almost like when you're resonating in a positive or like good, let's say feeling good state, then the doing will happen
Yeah.
from that state. So it's almost like that comes first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something I believe strongly and something I try and push with this platform. I talk to a lot of people who do death work and people who
Mm,
are like on the front lines, different activists, things. And I think that that's also an important step in the modern spiritual cultures. It's like the first step. It's not the final step, but to feel good. That's like the start of the journey. And it's like,
yeah.
what do you do with that sense of um, goodness? Like, do you bring it to the places that need it, or do you just kind of like hide out in places that kind of mirror it? And I think it's really
Right.
important for us to go into those troubled spaces. Just okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that I just try to encourage a lot. And I spent a lot of my life, my early 20s, just like really just like trying to feel good without any sense of service. And I think that ends up turning bad. So it's like at a certain point, the evolution, it will take you into service and it'll take you into action in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's one of the highest octaves of feeling good is,
Yeah.
we're connected. We're so connected. We're such tribal village social beings. And so when we feel like we are of service to others, we are doing good just through our
Yeah.
being, then
Yeah.
that feels good. It becomes a feedback loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Mm.
interesting because it also, I feel, at least from my experience, has come with a sense of tenderness when I see other people who are like immensely struggling. Like compassion can come online
Mm.
spontaneously because you don't, because you, as somebody who has suffered before and somebody who has a baseline level of feeling good, it's like really just inspires action without any deliberation.
Mhm.
And I think that that really is um, the gold, sifting for gold. I think that that is the ultimate expression of it, is just that desire to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Um,
Hmm.
so a lot of this, a lot of the work that you're doing, it ties in with another theme I wanted to touch up on, and it seems to be the energy of your new album releases, which is sovereignty. Your album Sovereign Kin, and a lot of this work seems to be helping people become sovereign. So I wanted to ask you, what does sovereignty mean to you in the modern age? Um, yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Um, Sovereignty to me is that it kind of ties back to when we were talking earlier about, the living song and this process of listening. And um, and I feel sovereignty is, it's really standing in our center, in our alignment with that which guides us,
Mm,
really being in clarity of connection with that which is greater than us, our soul, for instance, or soul connected to source, connected to all of creation, just whatever our process is of aligning or grounding into the earth, too. Um, it's like our central channel. In a lot of traditions, it's called the central channel. And or the Antakarana, the rainbow bridge, the center, the column that is our alignment as an energy, physical, all layers of the bodies, um, connected to all that is. And so, from our sovereignty, we know what is true for us. We know what is right for our body. We know what choices need to be made for our life. And only we can listen to that. Um, Only we can hear that. No one else can actually make that choice for us. Um, and that's where I'm very much not a fan of blanket statements, blanket governances that have to do with everyone should do this, everyone should do that, around specifically around body sovereignty.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm very consistent when it comes to body sovereignty in all
Yeah.
realms, and it's because every body is different, and every person is different, and every person's body needs something different. And when we really are in alignment and listen to that, that is how we best tend to the whole. The problem is a lot of people aren't connected to that listening, so that's where it can get tricky. But the sovereignty piece, I think it also has to do with this time we're in, um, where we're seeing a lot of government uh, control. We're seeing a lot of government hiding or mistelling. The media spins things. We're all very, it's a very rapid awakening process that we're in, of people being like, whoa, what's actually happening here? And I think part of sovereignty is that we're reclaiming, like, our collective voices, our personal, like, knowing of what's right and wrong. We're not just following along. um, and so sovereignty, I think, has like edges of revolutionary energy to it as well. Um, and the reason that it's essential, that the phrase of these albums, not just this one, but the ones to come, so it's a 4-part album series, moving through the elements, and the whole series is called Sovereign Kin. And kin is like the balance to
Mm.
sovereignty.
Mhm.
Because if we just operate in sovereignty, we can go too far in being like, um, you know, this is what I need, and this is me. It can be too me.
Yeah.
Kin is remembering that we're absolutely interconnected to everyone,
Yeah.
everything, not just humans, all species, all life, and that we are kin, we are family, the fabric of reality. We are woven. Our atoms are only appearing to be separate, um, and they balance each other, and so sovereign kin is an exploration of the balance of
Yeah.
those two things, and through the elements, yeah,
Yeah.
through what builds us.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I think, the energy of sovereignty, when you discover it, and you live from that, this kind of authentic presence, as it's called in the tradition I follow, it naturally communicates to other people. I find it to be really
Mm,
energetically, I've been in similar spaces with people who are just emanating this sense of real grounded knowing and trust. And there's something about that without words, it changes you, and I love the
mm.
emphasis on the
Chills.
interconnectedness. It is again, it's alchemical, and I think that taking on work like that is, I could see maybe some people saying like, "Oh, it's selfish, like investing that much into yourself," but really it is like the best thing we could do for other people is really reclaiming our agency and reclaiming our liberated qualities.
Yeah, and I think that's also where we trust, like being around people who are really deeply in their sovereignty. I think true sovereignty is a state of listening,
Mm,
because true sovereignty is so aligned with that which is greater than us. It requires us to constantly, in a way, be humbled. Our ego is not the primary force. It's not about
yeah,
me, I. It's actually very much in a listening state for what's next, what's needed,
yeah,
what am I being directed towards. And I think when we're around people where we feel that, it's also very, we trust them.
yeah,
And I think that's where true, who we, even on a community level, who we follow, who we choose to pay attention to as leaders. The idea of a leader, I think, is someone who's in their sovereignty, and in their sovereignty means they're listening. And by
yeah,
listening, they're listening for what's good for everybody. So it is kinship. Also, it's connected
yeah.
to all of it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like something that I just got hit with was a sense of when you trust somebody else, especially for people who have struggles trusting people, it does have a thread that leads you back to trusting yourself. Something like the best leaders are people who get
Mhm.
you to trust yourself and to like act on your own judgment, and they lead the way back home to yourself rather than pointing it to
Yeah.
them. We see that a lot in politics, or any vie for power is always this kind of sense of like, just I got it. You can't do anything on your own. But I think when somebody's genuinely sovereign, I think there's an exalted quality to it that, again, it emanates out and affects people and wakens them up to their own um,
Yes.
self.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with
Yeah.
that, why do you think anybody in the world would want to uh, take away people's sovereignty? That's like the other side of the revolutionary energy. From
Right.
your perspective, why are there people out there that are acting in such egregious ways?
Well, I think it's disconnection. I think
Hmm.
that's where you know, I have I think the people who are causing so much pain and suffering in the world, and trying to take away people's sovereignty on any level, whether it's physical violence, wars, um, genocides, or on a level of, like, in a relationship, trying to have power over someone, or anything in between, community levels, friends. Um, feels like the smaller self is operating.
Hmm.
It's not coming from that place of one's own sovereignty. It's coming from something else.
Yeah.
it's coming from a place that's not remembering how connected we are. And for that person, they're forgetting that they're totally connected. There's this false sense of me and mine, and I need to control in order to maintain my power, rather than my power is my alignment. And the more in alignment I am, the more in harmony I am, and everyone will protect me because I'm here to do good for everyone, like, so then
Yeah.
you're actually more safe and protected and empowered through the people around you. So I mean, I have a lot of compassion for the people who are causing so much pain on the planet right now, and the people who are in stations of forced power and taking away people's sovereignty because they must be in a nightmarish state of separation
Yeah.
in order to do that. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And so um, that's where I can find my heart of compassion, and send out a prayer or a vibration for them, to find their way back to connection, really.
As creatives, as people who are doing the work of stepping into our own power, what do you feel like we can do on an individual level against these massive collective organizations? How do you think politically, or how do you personally navigate that?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, there's many layers. There's many ways, I think, to address that. Of course, action in the physical, and action politically, and action, you know, voicing things to our community. All of these things are helpful, but I do feel that the most foundational layer of in a way, I don't like the word, to think of it as battling those forces, but reclaiming our power from those operating forces. um I believe it's coming into our central alignment and really stepping into our power as creators, which means stepping into our deep listening for our intuition and our inner guidance system, and our alignment with our soul journey, our greater higher self, and source and creation. And when we really are listening, and the irony, in a way, if you want to call it that, or the paradox, is like, from a deep state of listening and getting out of the way, all power comes through, because what
Mhm.
is more powerful than the force of life itself and creation itself? The source of creation is the most powerful energy. And so when we open up to let that come through, then something so much more vast than us, than our small self, is operating. And it's that power can move worlds. That power can create ideas that have never been thought before. That power can create connection. It can create miracles, really. It can create synchronicities, and the unfolding of, all of a sudden these people show up in our life and we're collaborating, and like this magical orchestration. Um, so I feel that really that is the foundation for shifting these patterns that we see in the world of people trying to control or take away our sovereignty, or most of the time distract us from how powerful we are, from remembering the creative capacity we have.
Yeah.
We reclaim it by making sure we're not distracted.
Right. Right.
We reclaim it with the power of our attention, and remembering that our attention is so valuable. And if we're just letting it go wherever it's directed, then we're losing power all over the place.
Yeah.
Whereas when we focus it and we have personal practices, meditation, you know, joining a community or being part of something like the Living Song or otherwise, where any container, even creating one in our communities, where we remind each other what we're really doing here. What are we really here for as humans? And how can we support each other to remember that every day? Then I really feel like anything's possible, and those
Yeah.
powers don't have a chance against that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah. I really think the poets are going to be at the forefront of whatever happens in the next 5 years. I think the people who are creating, the people who are connecting, the power of that, of community, the power of actually trusting other people, I think is going to be so much louder than any attempt to like squash that. And I think
Mhm.
as we have something like the internet where we're able to see these communities operating, such as yours or any other one, I think naturally that's going to be such a gravitational force because it's real, it's true, and I think that is going to become really undeniable. And especially like the upcoming generation, Gen Z, I have a lot of hope for because they already are taking on so much really progressive ideas, and
Mhm.
they have seen. And I'm a millennial, and we've been very disenfranchised. I mean, I grew up with like 9/11, and so like there's just so much compounding awareness for the amount of corruption there is, which I think the less we believe in those systems of power as legitimate, and the more we believe in ourselves as legitimate, then I think naturally everything else will follow. But it's like
Yeah.
spreading the awareness, which I think
Yeah.
art is the biggest beacon of light that, shines in the dark of all of the misinformation and disenfranchisement.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Um, so I am curious, and I know we are kind of running up on time, but you're stepping into this amazing journey of being a mother, and congratulations, by
Thank
the
you.
way. Really incredible. How do you want to interweave this sense of sovereignty into your motherhood practice?
Hmm, that's cool. Um, well, it's beautiful because I'm aware that I'm stepping into the greatest initiation of my life, which is the transition out of um, totally independent, even having been in long relationships, even having like lived in community, even all of these ways of being, I've still operated very much from like, this is my day, this is how I want it to go, this is what I'm going to do with my time. And I'm about to enter into a whole new phase of like everything is for showing up for this little one, which
Mhm.
by extension I think is an initiation into truly being of service on a
Yeah,
level that I've never known before, because it's not just this little one, it's all generations. Every child becomes, I already have such a connection to doing things for the future generations, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to go pretty next level when I have
yeah,
my own child. And so
yeah,
I'm really excited for that. I'm actually at a point in my life where I'm like, I'm excited for life to not be all about me now,
yeah, yeah,
um, and to have all those things go into a whole new octave. And so I think that's one way, is that it's going to call in a deeper a deeper alignment with my own sovereignty, and a deeper alignment with service,
yeah,
with showing up for yeah, our child and other humans, other children, and all species and the world, and just all of it. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. That feels really powerful. Um, and then I think there's a level of, what do I so we found out it's a girl. I'll share
mm,
that.
amazing.
And so, we've talked a lot about also wanting to raise her as a sovereign, as a I believe children know all of these things already. It's more
Yeah,
just making sure we don't cover it up with other thoughts,
yeah,
or
yeah,
just help her remember as she grows. And so um, I was homeschooled growing up, so that's something we've talked a lot about. The unfortunately, the standardized schooling system does the opposite of supporting children to remember their sovereignty. It's
yeah,
very controlling, and it's very actually opposite all of the psychology research about learning that shows what's effective. It's actually very backwards.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't need to go off and on on that, but it's a deep passion of mine is creating new awareness around what's possible for children when they're given not it's not like do anything and don't learn how to read. But it is a
Yeah.
sometimes called unschooling in that
Mm.
it's not so structured and it's actually more guided by their passion and their curiosity and when that happens, they're being encouraged to listen to their inspiration. They're being encouraged to trust their sovereignty as a creative human, as a
Yeah.
growing human, as a curious human, and um, yeah, and then other little things like just paying attention to how children are raised in other cultures. Um, especially in village cultures where children are, they know from a very young age that they're part of the whole collective,
Hmm.
um, and yes, they have sovereignty, and also part of that is showing up and helping and being part of things. And it's not like you have your chores. It's not even separate like that. It's actually
Yeah.
like this is just how we all take care of things together. So we're really excited to raise her with that. Um, yeah, where she can be right there with us in the garden, right there with us,
Yeah.
like cleaning the dishes, right there with us, doing all the things that are like, this is just life.
Yeah.
We're just all
Yeah.
taking care of each other. I think that's more of the kinship, but there's a lot of sovereignty in that because it's actually really empowering. And they've done studies that show when kids, even as young as age of like 1.5, 2, like the second they can do something, that they're given like little tasks, that they not only um, feel very like connected and included, but they also grow up to be much happier.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
like a different sense of, again, service, like what we talked about at
Hmm.
the very beginning, that it's the sense of I'm doing good is happiness. That I'm doing
Yeah.
good for others. That is a core foundation of our happiness.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're committed to that.
I love that vision. I have some friends who are raising their two daughters like that too, where they really encourage them and like make it like fun to do
Yeah,
things together, like clean. And you can see how it has changed the way that those children have grown up compared to, I mean, the way I grew up, where I was just like,
yeah,
I ain't doing none of that,
right.
and there's something about it that's just, it really teaches them how to just enjoy being in the moment with whatever is arising instead of compartmentalizing our life into like the things we have to do, the things we want to do. And it allows us to really create a seamless experience of just being,
Yeah.
um, rather than conceptualizing it too much. I think it's very important, you know.
Yeah, because I think then we can have a more holistic experience of our own lives, right? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is part of my day, but like cleaning is gonna make me feel like so much clearer, and like we're gonna put on
Hmm.
music and make
Yeah.
it fun,
Yeah.
or just like see it as part of this whole thing, not as like an, oh, I have to get through this to get to the next part. I mean, that's such like the
Hmm.
workforce, right? So we
Yeah.
get through the workday to get home to take a vacation someday, you know?
Someday. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like I think we're waking up to that's not life. And
Right.
so how do we all open up to let something greater come through so that, those who are meant to will receive like, oh, this is how the new systems can look. This is how the new
Hmm.
workforce can look. This is how new child raising and school systems can work. Like, you know, we all have our
Yeah.
piece of the puzzle, what wants to
Yeah.
come through us. So
Yeah.
it's exciting.
I love it. Well, we are coming up on time, and I want to respect the fact that you're in Hawaii and it's amazing. um, so, just for the people who have been resonating with everything you're saying, how can they plug in with what you have going on? I mean, obviously, Spotify is great, but with the,
Spotify, got
yeah,
got all
with
the
the,
stuff there.
yeah. So with the living song and stuff, what's the website for that? How can people access that?
Yeah, the website, I don't know if you can share links through your
Mhm.
podcast, but we'll get you the link so people
Okay,
can find it through
cool.
this portal. They can also go to my website, aylanereo.com. There's a page called courses, and that'll take them right there. Um, yeah, there's lots of new offerings being created as well that are more like short format for people that want just to maybe dip into one area or another. Um, but the membership is really the core, the ongoing space to nurture what we've been talking about on this podcast. So yeah, open invitation to anyone who feels called to try it out.
Wonderful. I love it. Well, Ayla, thank you so much for your time, giving me some of your vacation time. It really has been a treat and had a lot of fun.
Yeah, this
So,
has been a delightful conversation. Thank you
yeah,
so much for your questions and your intention behind this podcast. It's really beautiful.
of course. Thank you. And maybe we'll catch up in a year once you've gone through the birthing process and we'll see how everything is lining up.
That would be really fun.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for
Well,
having me.
yeah. Take care.
All right.
All right, that was the episode. Thank you again so much for listening all the way through until the end. I really do make this show for you. All the links for Ayla are down in the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this. But also, thelivingsong.aylanereo.com is where you're going to get plugged into that course. I really recommend giving it a shot if you are at all trying to cultivate your creativity. There's a lot worse ways to do it. With that said, if you want to support this show, patreon.com/21st Century Vitalism is a great way. Even if it's just $5 one time, I love it, I see it, and I thank you. Beyond that, you can always subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook. It's the digital age. We all know what's going on. So, again, thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next time.